Start at the beginning. Always a good place to start.
It's going to be a long night.
So born September 26, 1962 in Ballarat. And you've been a Ballarat resident all your life, as far as I understand. Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about what it was like growing up in the 60s? Many of the people in the room would have shared that experience with me. But there's some that don't know what it was like to grow up in the 60s. And in particular, what it was like growing up in Ballarat.
Thanks, Ian. Nice to be here amongst friends. Lovely to see so many familiar faces again, and congratulations on the work you're doing. And I know you had a very fulfilling day today, and obviously tomorrow you kick off with the presentation with Dick. And we catch. Well, obviously for distance running, for sport, and for life in general, then I think that's very keeps you, that keeps you going, so you never stop. So it's good to catch up with Dick, Chris and Mike, who I haven't seen for many years, and I said, oh, he's still involved, Mike. He said, oh, no, I've been retired 15 years. I'm thinking, God, I'm not that old, surely. So that seemed to be a long time ago, but fantastic to be among friends. And I was thinking about, when I was coming tonight, and I knew Ian would throw some curly questions at me. So what happens here is Ian asks the questions, and then I answer whatever I was going to say anyway. So, that's how it works in my world, and eventually I'll start interviewing there. Well, it was sport that started my journey in life, because at school, I was a quiet kid. Seriously, I was. And if anyone went to school with me in Ballarat, they would know. I love telling the story that the only time that anybody knew I was at school was when they marked the roll. And in this audience, Ian, you'll know, when they used to use a pencil, I think, on the roll. I'm assuming you don't do that anymore in schools. I don't know. And then if I didn't turn up, people would, the roll call would go and they'd say, Steve Moneghetti's not here. And that would be the only time that my absence would be noted. But then I started, and to be perfectly honest, my phys ed teacher at school, Gav Walsh, who still teaches at Damascus College in Ballarat, who occasionally will ask me to do something, and to thank him for introducing me to running, I obviously oblige. And he sort of running around, and he sort of got me in the school cross country and all that sort of stuff. And the message of that was that I was this quiet kid that no one actually cared about. And then suddenly, when I started running well, if they did have the school cross country on this particular day, and they were reading out the school roll or the class roll, and my name wasn't there, they'd all go, oh shit, Steve's not here today, we need him here today, because he's not in the school, win the cross country or whatever it was. So what it actually did was it really raised my self-esteem. So I kind of had a bit of a purpose, and people knew me for my running, and I became well known in my school for my running, and then obviously in Ballarat and generally Victoria and Australia, the world, ruling the world. That's how it works. But that's where I really started, and Ballarat was so significant for me. And obviously I still live there, and in fact we've got the Matildas in Ballarat at the moment, and I'm catching up with those ladies tomorrow before they go to Rio. So that they've come to Ballarat to have their final training camp, and the facilities there are fantastic. But what they are really noticing, and they know that they came about it earlier about the AOS. Doesn't matter what facilities you've got, if you don't have population or people that are using the facilities, then it's pointless. And I think in Ballarat, whilst we can have great facilities, the thing that we do have is a really great sporting community, and that supported me over the years. In fact, last night I was at a dinner where we had a triathlete who was unfortunately struck by a car, and we have a sportsman's club dinner every month on a Wednesday night. We get about 70 people who go along and talk rubbish for a few hours. Anyway, we opened it up last night because we wanted to raise money for Christian's family. In 2 days, we had 317 people want to go, and that sort of support from the community is obviously valuable, and one of the reasons I love where I live.
Fantastic. Now, if I move into specifically your athletics career, you started your athletics career at Little Athletics in Ballarat, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. You're not going to tell that story, are you?
Which is, where all of the accurate information comes from.
Yeah.
And the suggestion from Wikipedia was, first of all, that you were not considered to be a good runner.
Yeah.
And second of all, that you were probably not going to be good at athletics. Now, I'm just wondering, what were your recollections about your start in athletics? If Wikipedia is correct, perhaps you didn't have that great a start in athletics.
Yeah, and that is a true story, and my dad took me down to Little Athletics. He realised I loved my sport, took me down to Little Athletics. He actually worked on the Shire of Ballarat, and they, one of the grounds that he looked after was where Little A's was, so down I went, and after about 6 weeks, and to be honest, I was a little sort of skinny little fella, not the man mountain I am now, so and seriously, obviously I couldn't sprint, as you all gathered. I've got slow twitch fibre, so I was hopeless at the sprint. I couldn't lift the shot to put it anywhere, and I do tell you, if you've heard this before, I apologise, but we had the triangular high jump bar, and I hit that, and God, it'd leave a. I've probably still got scars on my back from landing on that because I never got over it, obviously, because I couldn't jump. So I couldn't jump, I couldn't throw, and I couldn't sprint. But we had this couple of laps at the end where, it was a walk down or the end, you just ran around the track, and I was obviously pretty good at that. But it is true that after 6 weeks, my dad's come back to pick me up, and the person who will remain nameless, who may have been taking this Little Athletics group, came over to Dad and said, "Oh, look, I wouldn't worry about bringing Steve back, he'll never be as good at athletics." And he was actually right, so I don't hold that against him, because I wasn't any good at it, because the distance wasn't long enough for me. So actually, that's the one thing with athletics, we probably have a lot of discipline, so there is actually an event for everybody, but we hadn't ran long enough for me to show my ability as a distance runner. So he was exactly right. And back then in Little A's, there was lots of other sports, so you went off and did something else. And for me, what really happened in my life, and if you go through my athletic performances, I don't think that I actually improved. I love what I did, so I just ran around. But what happened was, as the distances got longer, we'd run 1K and 20 people were ahead of me, and then I'd go into the next age group and we'd run 3K and 10 people were ahead of me. We'd go into the next age group, we'd run, because Lake Mendore's 6K around, we just happened to run 6K, get halfway and might as well keep going. So we kept going around 6K, and I'd find, I was in the top 3. And so, to be honest, I didn't actually improve, I didn't slow down as the distances got longer, and for me, I wanted to go to the Olympic Games, the longest running events, the marathon, so that's where I ended up, and, fortunately that distance just suited me really well, and, I don't deny I have a really good ability to be able to run distances, and that just fell into place nicely. The environment in Ballarat, the support from my school and my family, and, obviously that allowed me to have the successes that I did.
Great, thank you. Now you went to St Patrick's College in Ballarat, which has a really strong culture of Australian rules football these days.
Yes.
Did you have other interests outside of running?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I actually played football against St Pat's, and I played cricket. I was actually from a cricketing family, so I captained the Ballarat under-14 cricket side, but I played for Mount Clear, so I didn't actually play cricket. It was interesting. I don't know. why in my world, and it's probably still how I kind of operate now, school to me was education, so I went to school and was educated. And then as soon as the bell rang, you know, I was out off, you know, playing cricket at Mount Clear, playing footy at North Ballarat, or running with my club at Ballarat YCW. So for me, school actually operated outside, sport operated outside of the school environment. So my interest at school was, you know, to try and get as much of my homework done in school time. You know, the greatest day was the day I had a spare period because I could finish my homework. So then, you know, as soon as I got home, out I'd go in my sporting pursuit. So, so for me, you know, most of the friends that I have from school now were not so much the people I played in the school sports teams, but just people I grew up with. And, you know, I was. What do I tell people? I won an Alliance Française prize, so I was very focused on my education when I was at school. To be fair to say.
We've heard from some students today who've been able to integrate their studies with their sport. You've indicated that, you know, school was for education, sport was for after school. You've mentioned that you played for the Roosters, which is the North Ballarat team, and you follow the Melbourne Footy Club.
Sorry.
Oh, you're the other one, Kirsten.
I know, they're coming out of the woodwork, don't
There's two of them.
I'm just wondering if you ever considered a pathway in VFL or AFL?
Well, to some degree. I mean, I am in the North Ballarat team of the century, so I must have...
Sorry.
That's fantastic. Where's the
Maybe. It's my fly, I'm doing something. No, and you know what position I'm in? I'm the runner. That is true. It was the only way I was getting in that team, obviously. So I'm not sure how Mick Malthouse and Tony Lockett and all those real legends feel about having me there as the runner, but anyway, that's a fact. So, yeah, you know, for me, you know, obviously the North Ballarat Association was good. It was close by to where Mum and Dad still live. My Mum and Dad are still alive, and they still live in that same house. And in fact, I still run past there. I ran past where I played at the North Ballarat Oval. I've just had it's called Eureka Stadium now. It's just had a regeneration, but I actually ran past the oval that I did little athletics on. And don't you worry, when I run past that oval, I look in and I go, well, that's where that little A's happened and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't, you know, I kind of go, hey, look, I've done pretty well. And whilst I respect that that's the place it all started, I had some challenges from that, and I acknowledge that when I run past. I like that. Okay, so you can read stuff, you know, you talk about the Moneghetti report, all that sort of stuff, but I actually live it. I still live in Ballarat, and I run past that oval when I look across to where I did little athletics. And I have that association, and there's no doubt that keeps me motivated and keeps me running when I see that. And I reckon, you know, you've got to acknowledge that sort of stuff. It's like, you know, I don't want to sound like you know, it's the Indigenous way of, you know, welcome to country. That, for me, that's where I started my running career. That was the first introduction I had to athletics, and I acknowledge that and respect that, and I reckon it's good that I have that association. We don't do that enough. That's the human nature-ness of what we should do in life, and as I say, you can read it, but if you're actually doing it and acknowledging it, I think that's quite significant.
Thank you. If we move into your running career, and your running career is star-studded with some incredible highlights. There's a full set of bronze, silver and gold Commonwealth Games marathon medals. There's 4 Olympic Games with 3 top 10 finishes in marathon. 4 consecutive City to Surf wins, including the still holder of the current race record. The only man ever to win 4 Zatopek 10-kilometre races consecutively. 22 international marathons where he finished 11th or better in 20 of them. And he won the Berlin and Tokyo international marathons in 90 and 94, retiring after Sydney 2000, finishing in 10th place. I'm just wondering, what are your strongest memories, given that whole CV, what are your strongest memories of such a glittering career?
it's interesting, isn't it? I was actually, I came down the train tonight, so, I was thinking about what we're going to talk about. I was also writing some notes for when I do catch up with the Matildas tomorrow, and one of the things I'm going to tell them is an interesting fact, and I don't think I've shared this. Dick will know about it, but many of you won't, that I went to the World Championships. I got really lucky. I didn't get lucky, but an opportunity presented itself, and I took it. And I ran the Commonwealth Games, was my first marathon. So I was there for the 10K, and Chris Wardlaw said there's a spot in the men's marathon, do you want to have a go at that? So I went, and I won a bronze medal, obviously, and it went pretty well. So it didn't seem that hard marathon running, to understand, but I found out it was a bit harder than that. Anyway, the next year I got pre-selected then to go to the World Championships the next year. And so this is only my second marathon, and off I went to Rome, and I was having a pretty good race, and I got through the 35k drink station. There were a couple of Africans with me, Ahmed Salah and Douglas Wakaruso, Djiboutian and a Kenyan. And I actually, for a moment, I thought, shit, I reckon I can win here. I'm going to be the world champion. And just as I'm thinking that, they ran away from me. So that's what you get for not concentrating. But as all this unfolded, then we got to the 40k drink station, and an Italian guy, Gilindo Bordin, who ended up winning the gold medal at the Olympics the next year, he came from fourth and called me at the 40k drink station, and we kind of had a bit of a battle, and he ran into the stadium, and he got the bronze medal and I finished fourth. So I'm still thinking pretty good, but gee, when I get this marathon right, how good am I going to be? My first one I win a Commonwealth bronze medal, my second race out I'm fourth at the World Championships. Once I get good at this thing, God, I'm going to be unstoppable. So it's only a matter of time before I have the success that I so rightly deserve. Anyway, the moral of the story, and this is the bit I want the Matildas to know, is that it took me 10 years to improve on that performance. I went to the Olympics the next year and finished fifth, and then I won some international marathons, but my championships, I think I finished in the top 10 in the worlds in a cup. I was 5th, 7th, 6th, but I never improved on that 4th until 10 years later in Athens, at the marathon in Athens. And would you believe, at about 40k, there was an Italian who was closing on me. And I'm thinking, oh no, and I've seen the footage about Bruce McAvaney. Luckily, I wasn't hearing what he was saying, because he's saying, this Italian's coming, this is going to be deja vu, he's going to get beaten out of the bronze medal again. But I held on, and it's one of my most precious memories. Because at Athens, we actually finished in the old stadium. So we were the only events, the men's and women's marathons were the only events in '97 that finished in the old stadium. We got actual reads for our performances. So for me to finish third there, I ran into the old stadium, and it was a pretty spiritual finish for me, and it was a great memory to have. And yet I'd worked for 10 years to just improve one place. If you had told me in 1987 you were going to be waiting 10 years, and God, I would have ran a bit harder. I reckon I would have won the bronze medal then and to stop. But anyway, history would show that you never know what opportunities you have, and in hindsight you look back, and I think I'll tell that other story about the City to Surf. This is again, this is a little known fact of the City to Surf record. So I'd had to go at it for 3 years prior to actually breaking it, and on this particular year in when I can't remember what it was, 92 I think, was it 92 Dick? I'm not sure. Anyway, I think I'd remember, wouldn't you? But anyway, they put up, because the record had stood for so long, so Rob Dedestold held it for 10 years, they had a $50,000 prize, so if I broke the record. And so I'm thinking, well, this is the year to do it, I'll set them up nicely for this. So anyway, the gun goes, and we're running along, and I'm out in front, obviously going to win, and the only thing on my mind was to break this record. And the change of course this year, but you come down Marine Parade and you do this big sort of swooping bend, and I know it's about a minute from when you turn to you cross the finish line, and the lead car's coming along, and on the lead car it's under 39 minutes. I'm thinking, God, I'm a chance here. So I really finished on really quickly and went through the finish line, and the car reads 39 minutes and 58 seconds. So, and the car sort of pulls off to the side, I go through the finish line, and I'm thinking, fantastic, not only have I won for the 4th time, I've broken the record, and I've ran under 40 minutes, and I've won 50 grand. Anyway, the guy jumps out of the car, the lead car, and runs over to me. I'm thinking, of course he's running over because he wants to congratulate me. He'd be the first one to congratulate me for, breaking the record. Anyway, he runs over and he goes, look, I've got to tell you something. the time on the car is not right. And I'm thinking, how not right is it? This is going to cost me 50 grand, the record, all of this is sort of all falling apart. And he says, yep, I forgot to start it when I heard the gun go, and there's about a 5-second differential. So I'm thinking, 5 seconds, I'm quickly doing maths teacher, adding it on, 40.03. So I still got under the record, so I still won 50 grand and won. But you know what? In my own mind, I have this sense of disappointment because I think I ran under 40 minutes. That's what I saw. So I've been cheated out of 5 seconds. So don't ever bring that up again. You go to sleep on the way home after that.
Steve.
I turned it off.
You did.
That's what happens. I'm in control.
You've not only had a great running career, but you've had a bit of a media career along the way too. Just, Raph, if you could run some video for us.
Time for me to go to the toilet.
Yes, please.
Steve Monegehetti, the teacher with
I don't think that's me.
No.
doing his best for Australia.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I remember that ad quite well as I was growing up. And I'm just wondering, did you have to do any acting training? And is it something that you think you'll be pursuing? And thirdly, did you ever eat Mars bars?
Well, that's a good question, because as it turns out, there was an article at Mars, I'm not sure if people are aware, but back then more so, but Mars Australasian factories in Ballarat, so just on the outskirts in Alfred, and I loved, because I was running so hard that I loved eating. I seriously was eating Mars products to sort of replenish my energy. I don't know if it's, I shouldn't be saying that, but anyway, I love my chocolate. And there was an article in, I think, the Australian magazine. We talk about branding and pushing our causes out there. There was an article in the Australian, and my manager rang up Mars and said, "Oh, look, here's Steve Moneghetti. He's giving you a bit of publicity here, saying he's eating Mars bars." And then they came back and said, "Oh, we'd actually like to sponsor him." So I had a sponsorship with Mars for about 4 or 5 years, and I do remember I was probably when I was at my most popular, and lots of people would come round to my house. And the reason they'd come round to my house was because we would open in our fridge. This is not a good story, but I opened the fridge, and apparently you're meant to put fruits and vegetables in that crisper down in the bottom. Ours was full of Mars products, and lots of people would come and visit and take some Mars products home with them. So that is a true story. But I think it does show that by I was just promoting. I didn't go out of my way to say that I was eating Mars bars, but as a consequence of that, the manager seeing the vision in that spoke to Mars, and it was a fantastic relationship at the time, and obviously a Ballarat company, so it was a really nice fit. And I did pursue my acting career. I'm sure you've all seen me in the movie, the Reverse Runner, where I'm there you go, there it is. So where what do I say about it? I'm a down and out ex, champion athlete. And I said art imitating life, but not really. But so that was an interesting experience. And a couple of guys from Colac who, it's a pretty average sort of movie, but they sent me the script and said, would you be John Jones, I think, or Jonathan Jones in the movie, and it was just a fantastic way to support these couple of guys who were finding their way in the film world. It took about 4 years to get from, I think they lost a bit of my acting on the cutting room floor, so that's probably why it took so long.
We'll come back to the movie in a minute.
Oh, bugger.
Look, you've held many positions of responsibility over time, and your CV reads pretty strong in this space. Chair of the State Review Panel for Physical and Sport Education in Victorian Schools, Chair of the Board of the Victorian Institute of Sport, Mayor of the Athletes Village at the 2006 Melbourne Com Games, Chef de Mission 2010, 2014, and appointed to 2018 for the Com Games, and a board member of the Australian Sports Commission. I'm just wondering, did leadership come naturally to you?
Well, it's funny, I retired and moved sort of straight into, I was on the massage table at Dennis Boyle's house at 41A Wilson's Lane in Sebas on a Monday night, and a phone call comes through from Justin Madden, who was the sports minister at the time, and said something about being on the board of the Victorian Institute of Sport. And I'm halfway through a massage, so I said yes. Anyway, about a week later, the letter came through saying, thanks for accepting the position as chairman of the Victorian Institute of Sport. And I thought, God, gee, I don't remember saying yes to the chair. I was happy to be on the board. So I went straight into the chair, that was in 2001. So it kind of happened quite quickly. And might I say, I must give credit, and God rest his soul, Frank Pike and Leon Wiegard was there. There were some very experienced people on that board, and they must have thought, who the hell is this kid that's just come straight out of sports, got no idea what's going on? But they tolerated me for the first couple of years, and I grew into the position. And I think that the VIS under my leadership actually progressed, and that's my only want in life is the positions I take on. I want the organisation to be in a better position than when I started. If I leave, and again, I'm shaping up again for the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast in a couple of years. I didn't need to do that, but there were suggestions that my leadership there would help that team, and if the athletes benefit from it, then I'm happy to do it. So that's my only way. That's why I accept these roles, and it's been fantastic to be able to continue to be involved. And I think everyone would understand, again, with like my little A's and the debt I owe phys ed teachers, and Gav Walsh in particular. It's the same for the Commonwealth Games. That was where I started. They gave me the opportunity. I made that 10K team, I ran that marathon. Those opportunities came along. I said, so when Perry Crosswhite asked me in 2002 to go to Manchester as an athlete liaison officer, said, I owe the Commonwealth Games, I'm happy to go, you just tell me what you want me to do. And that's how it's worked. I say, if you ask me to do something at Commonwealth Games, I'll do it. So, mayor here and then the chef's job. I never could have imagined. I was the last person selected on that 1986 Commonwealth Games team. That is a fact. And, but athletes in the room and people who have been involved in sport will know that. The 10K just down, I am old. Used to be just down there at Olympic Park. It's now over there at the Lakeside Stadium. But I ran under the qualifying time by 4/10 of a second. You can look it up. It was 28 minutes and 28 seconds, and I ran 28 minutes, 27.6 seconds. So I was the last person to make that team. And obviously, if there had been a full complement in the men's marathon team, I wouldn't have been able to run the marathon. So I wouldn't have then gone to the Worlds and off to the Olympics in 88. So it happened because of the opportunities that the Commonwealth Games gave me. So, hey, they've done the right thing by me, so I owe them, and I try and repay the favour. I'm still repaying it. I will never be able to do enough for the Commonwealth Games or the ACGA to repay them for the opportunities they've given me. And, I'm never going to forget that. I didn't mean to come here and think about that. You've got to remember where you come from, and that just gives you more direction on, I don't know, what is that? You look to the past, you plan for the future, and you live for now, that sort of stuff. And that's what I try and do, and respect those people who have assisted an organisation that assisted me along the way. That's one of the reasons I'm here, because seriously, without you people and the support that you've been able to show me and the sport that I've been involved in and the opportunities I've been able to have because of the work that you guys do, I don't need to be. I want to be here to thank you for allowing me to have that. And so many of us should be thanking you. How many people, has anybody thanked you today? Luke, has somebody thanked you today for something you did?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, good. Thank God for that. Yeah,
Put me on the spot.
Yeah. No, seriously, we don't thank people. And you know what? It's funny in life that if you do a really good job, people don't thank you because they just go, oh, well, you know, I'm sure they know they've done a really good job. But if you do something wrong, God, they rip into you in a hurry.
Yep.
So it's kind of, that's how, I'm not sure why that's how society is. But I'm here to say thanks very much for what you do. And without preempting it, and one of the reasons I wanted to come tonight was to specifically give you the support for the, you know, what's become known as the Moneghetti report, but how important phys ed is. Okay, now we know how important sport is, but I really think that phys ed and that basic skill that we need to get back into schools, but certainly back into primary schools. God, how good would that be? I'll go to my school. If we go to our grade and we finally get these fundamental motor skills and phys ed skills back into primary schools, specialist teachers into primary schools, God, wouldn't we die happy people? But, I can't promise it, but we're all working on that happening, because if you don't have that basic skill level, then you don't get to participate in sport. And there could be no one in Australia that doesn't want to be involved in sport. No one. I'm sure, you know, all of us understand it, and Dick will tell us about it, and so many people have done research, and Helen, we know how important sport is for Australia from a cultural perspective. Okay, now to be able to let people enjoy that cultural activity, we need to give them the basic skills, and that is so important. So without that, and I know I've got 4 kids, 3 girls, 2 of which this is a practical example. One, she's not non-sporting, but she's a little bit larger than she should be or she could be. But what happened at 13, she actually had a hip displacement. So I was running it. I would be running, wouldn't I? So my wife stops and says, "Look, we've just come from the physio." They said, "Look, we think there's happening in your daughter's hip. Need to go to have an X-ray." Anyway. Short story is the next day she was in for a hip operation. She's got pins in her hip from this displacement. She was told not to exercise for 12 months, and she couldn't, so she didn't exercise for 12 months, and she has never gone back to exercise at the full level that she was prior to that. So because she had that sort of, not excuse to get out of exercise, but she lost the environment of being active, and it's affected her for the rest of her life. She's loves sport, but she's not actively involved. So I understand how important it is at that young teenage years to make sure we do have the ability to be involved in sport. So that's my lecture for the night, and I thank you for indulging me.
And thank you, we appreciate the message, and you're actually reiterating a number of the comments that we received from other speakers today. I've only got a couple more questions, but they're really key questions. You were involved in the review of physical and sport education in 1993 in Victoria, and coming out of that were 19 recommendations that ultimately turned into Memorandum 764 that mandated physical education and sport time in schools in Victoria. And that mandate stands today. In the room are a number of people, they're what we called influencers early today, and you've obviously been able to make significant influence through those recommendations and ultimately having that time mandated. Some tips for those people out here in terms of influencing people, and in particular influencing government for that type of very significant change.
Yeah, obviously it's hard, and it's got harder because of the bureaucracy. The interesting thing, I got the report out today and had a look, and just wanted to acknowledge some of the people. Remind me, there it is, that's right. And you know what, you take it, there's 20 pages of appendices, so page 66 to 86 are appendices. So, and there's probably, there's 3 or 4 pages at the front just of intro. So there's only actually 60 pages in there. So you don't need 3,000 pages to qualify as a document. 19 recommendations in 65 pages, and I was really proud that we actually got it implemented through the PACE programs. But you know what we did? We had buy-in from the two important people, Don Haywood, who was the Education Minister, and Tom Reynolds, who was the Sports Minister. And if you talk to Tom Reynolds, you know, every time he'd turn up at something, he would be really proud of the involvement and support he gave to that. So you need real serious buy-in from your sport and education ministers, there's no doubt. And it needs to be combined, obviously, and we spoke about it earlier. It needs to be bipartisan, but it also needs to get over one electoral cycle. And that's one of the issues that I have. You know, I'm not politically minded, but one of the issues I have is this is going to take a generation to change the situation that we've It's taken a generation to, I mean, that's 93, 96, so we're talking 20 years ago. Look at how much it's dropped away in that 20 years. So we, you know, the golden year, everyone tells me, when were the golden years? You know, they were in the 90s. Well, you know, that's 20 years ago, and if we want to get, it'll take just as long to get it back going. So it's a generational change that we need to start now. Now we need to get over the 3-year or 4-year political cycle, because if a change of government happens, we get frustrated, we start again. You've got to, you know, go through the process of relationship building and all that sort of stuff. So that is your key. So once we get it, you know, agreed upon, and that will come from the community, not from financial support of a political party, not because of, you know, different connections with political parties or getting me to be the sportsman. That won't help. It has to be community driven. And if it's, you know, again, we'll talk to Helen, you know, if you ring up Malcolm Turnbull and say he's going to lose 100 votes if he doesn't put sport on the agenda, it'll be front page of the paper tomorrow, because that's all I worry about is being popular and getting votes. So we need to just work with, that's reality, but we need to make sure that we've got, you know, our evidence backed, so that we've got the facts. So when we do get a chance to talk to the important influencers, as you call them, Ian, then we must make sure that we're reinforcing how important it is by facts and figures. So that's probably the way I'd go about it.
Thank you, and thanks for that advice. Here in Victoria, we have had an audience with the Education Minister. And interestingly, the Sports Minister's in the building at the moment. I saw John Aaron wandering around downstairs. So if anybody happens to see John Aaron later tonight, maybe buy him a beer at the bar. To wrap up tonight, you call yourself a Ballarachian? Is that the right term?
Ballaratite, maybe? I'm not sure.
And I understand that you are still running around Ballarat, perhaps covering as many as 100 kilometres a week still. We're just wondering what Steve Moneghetti's doing today. I know that you have an online sports consultancy business, and that possibly, well, you've already mentioned your movie star role. So what's happening for Steve Moneghetti at the moment?
You know, there's lots. Whilst I've got some ongoing roles, a lot of it's day to day for me, and I'm here tonight. Tomorrow, as I say, I'm catching up with the Matildas whilst they're in Ballarat. I'm driving to Barwon Heads to speak to a corporate group tomorrow night. Saturday morning, I'm volunteering at Park Run in Ballarat, and then running the 15k Athletics Victoria road race, where I hope, don't tell anyone, but I'm hoping that the world record for a 53-year-old for 15k on the road is 50:03, and last week I ran 19 minutes for 6k, so it's about 20 minutes I should be able to hold. So 20 minutes times for 6k times 2.5 gets you to 50 minutes. So I'm hoping I might be able to do that. And then I can only do 1k warm down, so I won't quite get my 100k this week, because then I've got to zip over, take the family over to watch the Matildas. They're playing New Zealand at Moorshead Park, starting at 3. So I have to run fast, otherwise I don't get there to see the game. So, and then I go to watch the Miners basketball Saturday night. Sunday morning run with the guys. So that's how it rolls out for me. And I'm on lots of committees and boards, and I to and fro. So I've been down here 3 days already this week. I'm going back tonight and off to Barwon Heads. So that's my life. Is, you know, I love the variety. And obviously I've got a wife and 4 kids. We're out last night, we're out tonight, I'm at Bowen Heads tomorrow, and so that's just how it rolls for me, and it's fantastic for me because I get to. I don't think anyone could deny I have a passion for sport and a passion for life, and I love just getting out and sharing. I love human interaction. Unfortunately, it sounds like just the interaction between, I'm giving you information, but I love sharing information with people. And for once we lose that art of communicate, there are two important things in this world, and I'm not sure what you've had today, what you're going to have tomorrow. Communication and relationships, and after that everything just rolls out below those. So for me it's about catching up with people that I really enjoy the company of. That's you, and then it's communicating by not being on those things, but actually using our mouths. And as what did you tell me, Chris? What is the one? This is my takeaway. If I take nothing else away tonight when I'm on the train back home to Ballarat, one thing I will take out, one of the most important characteristics of leadership, listening. And I'll take that away, Chris. It's a very important. So thanks for passing that on to me tonight, because obviously I haven't listened because all I'm doing is talking. But generally from now on, I promise I'll do a lot more listening than talking for the rest of the night. But thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for indulging me and having me here tonight. Thanks, Nick, for making the effort to get me here. And as I say, I love what I do, and I'm really supportive of what you guys do. So please keep me involved and keep me informed, and if we work as a team, then the outcomes will certainly be more likely to be implemented. Thanks.
I can't let him go without promoting the movie. Raph, could we, perhaps we could see a couple of scenes?
Sure.
The movie's called Reverse Runner, starring Steve, starring?
No, it's just a special guest or something.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Athletics. It's the event you've been waiting for, the 100-metre reverse running final. And isn't there a lot of pressure on this man, John Jones?
Don't know if you recognise that body.
Straight win. The crowd calling it the high five. The starting line is, of course, the backbone of the backwards race.
That's Bruce McAvaney.
Yes. Jones taking a while to settle. Wait, I've never seen this. John Jones has created a new starting position. I shouldn't laugh, but perhaps the pressure has gotten too great for the favourite. They're off and reversing. And I don't believe that Jones is flying. His new starting position is recorded. This is a magical moment. Jones just broke the record and claimed his spin straight with a time of 14:40. His backwards track start has revolutionised reverse running. I'm calling it the back start. Salutes the lucky fan. Perhaps this kid has what it takes to be a reverse runner.
For a medal? No.
He is the star.
Go front. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Raph, if we could just hold it there.
Is the offending lane.
So that's just an excerpt from what was a fantastic couple of hours I spent on Wednesday night, I think it was.
I'll pay you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute privilege for me to chat with Steve Moneghetti tonight, and I would like you please to put your hands together and thank Steve for coming. I know your main courses have been sitting on the table, please enjoy it.